There's a moment in every woman's life when she stops waiting for permission, for approval, for someone else to make her feel whole. When she realizes that love doesn't begin with being chosen, it begins with choosing herself. Maria's story is one of rediscovery, of a woman who had lost herself in the rhythm of everyday life. Children, work, a partner who drifted into silence, until one day she looked in the mirror and saw a stranger staring back. What followed wasn't rebellion, it was awakening, an unfolding through pleasure, curiosity, and truth. A journey from performance to presence. This is not just a story about sex, it's about the courage to feel alive again. Welcome to 340, the podcast where we discuss presence and pleasure. And this is the episode Maria, when she chose herself. She was never afraid of her body, not as a teenager, not as a woman. She grew up in the Swedish countryside, where nature was free and glances not as narrow as in the city, where bodies moved naturally between work, celebration, and flirtation, where sex was something she began exploring early, not as rebellion, but as curiosity, as pleasure. She met him when she was 19. It started with laughter, late nights, intensity. They grew up together, studies, relocations, careers. They knew everything about each other, stayed close even when living apart. In the early years, their sex was filled with longing. It was hot, almost animalistic, maybe because they didn't always have each other. And when they finally did, it was pure passion. When it once began to fall apart, he proposed. But they never got married. Children came, life became logistics. And somewhere between preschool drop-offs and sleepless nights, something slowly began to fracture. He withdrew into himself, into his darkness. She tried to reach him, to talk, to hold things together. But with each attempt, she was pulled a little further down, until one day she felt like a shadow, unheard, unheld, just used, walked over. And when she saw herself in the mirror and didn't recognize her own eyes, she understood. This can't be my life. There was no big drama in the breakup, just a deep, quiet grief. And in the middle of it, an unexpected spark. Desire. She started seeing other men, carefully at first, then with more clarity. Her body awakened. Her mind wanted to play. And each time she was touched the right way, something inside began to heal. And then came Jonas, an attractive man with a long relationship behind him. He carried his wounds, but also experience. They started seeing each other. He wasn't fully emotionally available, but he was honest about it. And in bed, he was more present than anyone she had ever known. They explored the A spot, the G spot, deep penetration. She came again and again, vibrating, radiating, spreading through her entire body. She laughed during sex, cried out, floved. There was freedom in it. She felt desired and powerful. But after 6 months, it ended. She realized she wanted more than just sexual chemistry. She wanted to build something. So she started dating again, with new eyes and with a new standard. And that's when she met Andy. They talked for hours the first time. Like her, he'd been through a breakup that had shaken everything. But he wasn't afraid of it. He told his story, asked questions, listened. And something sparked, even then in the conversation. And when they kissed, it was as if something magnetic pulled them together. They couldn't stop. And they didn't want to. The second time they met, they made love. Long, slow, wild. It was a marathon, but not one of performance. It was one of energy. They explored each other as if time didn't exist. And then they kept going. Week after week, the weeks without the kids became their bubble, their escape, their space. And they created something not just in bed, but in conversations, laughter, walks, dinners, a safe place where everything was allowed: desire, sorrow, joy, memory. And she had more orgasms than she thought possible, in new ways, deeper, stronger. But it wasn't about the number, it was the feeling, the caresses, the breath, how they melted together when they made love, how she climaxed with him again and again. She was allowed to receive. She was allowed to be a woman without apology. And in his gaze, she didn't just see desire. She saw respect, openness, a we. They were building something, brick by brick, with skin, with heart, with thought and time, with presence and with communication. And for the first time, maybe ever, she didn't feel like she had to choose. She could have it all. So I'm very happy to welcome back Mor Shavit. Mor is a mind-body coach, mentor, and subconscious expert, a guide in emotional integration and a woman with a unique sensitivity to the silent forces that really shape us, and especially in our relationships as men and women. She brings warmth, clarity, and a deep understanding of the shame we carry, often without even realizing it, especially when it comes to desire, closeness, and our bodies. Mor, welcome back. I'm really glad to have you back here again.
Hey, Henrik, I'm so happy and grateful to be here again. Always loving our conversations and really looking forward to dive to another one today.
Yeah, and we were listening to the episode with Maria, and there's a few things we need to go through here. So, why do you think open communication about sex is still so difficult, even in a long-term relationship?
Well, it's such a good question. And before I will answer, I wanted to just set the table and talk a little bit about language as human beings. And if we think about language, the way we relate as human being is through words and through language. And so language itself is shaping our world, shaping our reality, and at the end, also shaping the way we are experiencing our world and our reality. So, with just setting the importance of language, we can now dive in about language around sex. And sex is one of the most taboo concept in humanity. And it's entangled with so much shame around it. And so when we grow up, we knew that sex is something to be shame about. There is a different agenda, and we learn to be silent about it. Yeah. When we are entering long-term relationship, many times our nerve system and our heart is being activated. We spoke a lot about inner child and how we are being activating as our inner child in long-term relationship. And so when we approach in long-term relationship where we want to be, desire to be the most connected, the most vulnerable, the most authentic, but we are being so scared about it because our heart is being so scared to open up, talking about sex becoming something really difficult. Because I can think subconsciously, will I be judged? Will I be rejected? Is it too much what I desire? Will this create conflict? What will he, she think about me if this is what I'm interested about? And so instead of bringing this topic in and authenticity and truth and loyalty to myself and what I feel around it, I silent myself. And this is just a survival strategy. And in the long run, what will happen is that silence is not disappearing, it's just creating separation and distance. And so actually we are not able to come close together when we are not learning how to speak truth around the topic of sex.
For me, it's like you're acting from a place of fear again, right? We talked about that in previous episodes, but this means that you're acting from the place of fear when it comes to fear of reaction, fear of not being loved or being heard or understood, even.
Exactly. And remember, we always said that where fear lives, love and life cannot coexist.
Yeah,
Yeah. So it's really about that.
no, it's powerful. What happens in the body when we dare to express our needs or when we silence them? There's the difference between the two.
Absolutely. And so in connection to the previous question, when I am able even to express my needs, it means that I'm already feeling safe. And so if I'm feeling safe, my desire can come up and can be alive, can be activated, and then I feel safe to express it. When we silence our needs, the body contracts. We hold tension in the jaws, in the pelvic, in the stomach, and all of these emotions being stored in the tissues. So instead of being in aliveness, there is a sense of survival, and on the long term, it will be interpreted as betrayal in our own truth.
No, so when you express your needs, that's really when you can be living more fully as well and be much more open and honest with your partner, in my mind, right? Um,
100%. And on the long run as well, not being able to do so will create disconnection and numbness and resentment. And so it's a relationship that it's doomed to be either lived as numbness and ghost and separation, or doomed to be breaking completely.
yeah,
But what's sad about it, it's a lot of us don't even know and aware of all of that. And so we think this is life, or this is something in me, or this was something wrong in him or in her. And so the invitation here for everyone that is listening is really to look at this experience with curiosity and without judgment, and to ask yourself, do I feel safe in myself? Do I feel safe with my current partner to speak my truth, to speak my desire? And if not, what is the work that I need to do firstly within myself in order to be able to bring my desire up front and to speak my truth?
yeah, and in relation to that, though, so how does the language we use or avoid using around intimacy and sex affect really how we connect with a partner?
So, language, as we already said, shapes the world that we live in and how we experience. And so, in that context, it shapes the permission.
Yeah,
So, when a couple is using an open, grounded, embodied language and not performance, or I would call it porn language of what we think the language around sex and intimacy sometimes may sound like, they can create a safe space where they can both say and speak their truth of what is living in them in that current moment. And they can both land in that space, and there are no expectation, there is no performance. And again, in the same sense, where there is avoidance of certain words or of certain emotions or of certain wishful from oneself of how they want to experience this current moment, again, dishonest will create disconnection and will completely, I would say, provoke and will not allow the intimacy to fully be there.
yeah, that is very true. And I think in one way, communication, though, particularly in sex and intimacy, for me, is verbal in one sense, but it can also be non-verbal communication as well, right?
Yeah.
So, how do you see the link then between emotional presence and physical pleasure? That's
Mm. It's
interesting.
exactly as linked to what you exactly just said.
Yeah.
And the beauty with the body always knows. Yeah. The body has the keys, the body has the wisdom, the body always hold the truth, even when we are confused, even when we don't really know, the body knows. And so the nervous system cannot separate emotional safety from physical sensation.
Mm.
And so if my heart is guarded, if my nerve system feel unregulated and it's not safe, then simply the body won't fully open, not in a natural way anyway.
Mm.
So if presence is missing, then pleasure will become mechanical. It doesn't mean that we cannot reach some sort of pleasure, but it will not feel pleasure that can be felt when the nerve system feel safe.
Yeah, and that's a massive difference. I mean, obviously, the release you get from a climax is obviously nice, I guess, even when it's mechanical, but there's a very big difference between that type of release and what you have when you are truly present.
Yes. And a lot of it also has to do with what you feel a minute later as well.
Yeah.
And presence will allow the connection to be much wider than the actual pleasure of the current moment. It's for the entire bond and connection and feeling safety and seen and held by someone else and by your own self.
Yeah.
And that lasts for long.
And also sometimes if you're doing it only mechanical, even with a sexual partner, I think sometimes you can also feel quite empty afterwards as well.
Yeah.
Emotionally empty, that is.
Yes. Yes.
So So you mentioned here, we talked about presence and being present. So what does it really mean then to be present, not just in body, but emotionally, energetically? What does it really look like?
Beautiful question. So we have a saying that being present, it doesn't mean I'm in the room. So it's not just I'm in this room, so I'm present here.
Yeah.
And it's really to bring myself into the current moment. So being present, meaning that I'm able to be with myself, first of all, with whatever it is that is living in me in this current moment.
Mhm.
And when I'm able to do so for myself, I can then able to do it for someone else without judgment, without expectation, without performance, with just simply be.
Yeah.
It means that emotionally and energetically and physically, it can look like we breathe much slower. I'm very fully anchored in my attention for this current moment. My nerve system feel regulated, feel safe. I'm not rushing into anything, into the act or into the performing of the act or what is I feel expected of me. And I'm just available to feel and to be without actually doing anything. And this is really emotional presence. And I feel energetically presence. It's one layer above that, and is
Yeah.
when the emotional presence is aligned with your awareness. So you're able to also be and see yourself in that moment. And that is a beautiful moment to practice to be.
I would completely agree on that. And when you reach that level, I think that's also when you feel even more relaxed and you feel even more alive. I think is a
Mm,
really good way to put it in my mind.
mm, yes.
And I think in the Western world, I think sex is being used quite a lot as the way of being in the present in one way.
Mm,
But like you also said, if you don't have the awareness, it's sometimes very hard to truly be very present as well. So
yeah.
sort of a paradox in one way that we use sex as a way of being present or being in the now. But at the same
But
time, if we're not aware about ourselves in that, we're not truly being present either.
exactly, exactly. It
So
is
it's sort of a paradox.
activating all of our subconscious. the actual act of intimacy and sex is the one biggest activator of survival
Yeah.
of our default mechanism and our inner child's wound and what we have learned around that topic and the ability to be with open heart. And so it is really a paradox, but also a pathway and gateway to really do a deep work with the right partner and
Yeah.
to really be able to deactivate all the pain and wounds around that topic. And I want to say something really important here that I have just like recently sat in circle with other women and I came to a really understanding it. So I want to voice it for others that might listening, especially women. Wounds around sexuality doesn't mean that you were necessarily abused sexuality in that sense. Wounds around sexuality can be anything from wounds of the freedom to really feel yourself as a little girl and to be able to fully be you in your sense, or maybe when you were 4 and you were still naked, you were being told something about it. It can be as small as that to create a whole wound and numbness and disconnection with oneself and around that topic. So it's really,
Wow.
really important to listen to it from that space and to understand that deactivating these wounds can happen through intimacy and sensuality, not necessarily if you had per se wounded that are related to sexuality and sensuality
That's
for
beautiful.
both sides.
Yeah, and on that with women, right? So many women describe losing themselves in relationships. And why
Yeah.
do you think that happens?
Well, you're asking about women, so I will answer about women, but I will just say before that, so it will be noted that we human beings, when we connect,
Yeah,
we have the tendency to lose ourselves in relationships. And
true.
and it's happening because this is the way we have been conditioned to. It looks different between the gender because of the different conditioning and the different roles of society and the expectation in these roles. But in the sense of losing ourselves, which I would prefer to actually reframe it and say that losing oneself, it's actually abandon oneself. And that's happening to both genders.
Mm.
It just look different. And now answering in specific to women, so women are raised up to prioritize harmony, caregiving, holding the emotional load, being the container for the emotional load. If there are children in this dynamic, to be the mother and the caregiver for the mothers, for the kids as well. And so if a woman doesn't have a strong internal anchor, meaning her inner yes or her inner no are not strong, she will automatically, by default, merge with her partner's needs. And she will do so from subconsciously the willingness to keep the peace and keep the
Mm.
harmony and actually maintain the connection. But in truth and in fact, every time she will say outside a yes, which is a no inside, she is abandoning herself. And doing that, she's losing herself. And losing yourself or abandon yourself, it's not love, it's survival.
That's a very healthy way to look at it more and creating that awareness.
Yes. And I want to say something about it. There is a beautiful quote that my teacher taught me many years ago. And it goes that the tragedy of the reactive consciousness is that it will always confront you with the emotion of which you're trying to avoid.
Yeah.
And just circling back here, the woman, any woman that is trying to, by abandoning herself in a reactive way, in a subconscious way of being, trying to maintain the peace, maintain the harmony, maintain the connection, the tragedy, she will end up losing the connection and feeling disconnection and losing the harmony.
Yeah. It's like what you're avoiding or trying to avoid actually controls you.
Yes. Yes. And will hunt you.
And will hunt you.
Will hunt you.
So it's profound. And in Maria's story, however, I think safety seems to be the key for her awakening. So what does safety actually mean then in a sexual or emotional context? What do you?
So I will answer it about Maria, but it's actually about all of us as human
Yeah.
beings. So safety, it's really important to understand. Safety is not a comfort. It's not, oh, it will be nice to have safety in my relationship. Safety, it's the permission that says I can be fully myself without consequences.
Mm.
I can be fully myself without consequences. And in intimacy, it will look like I will be listened to. I will be met with presence and no expectation and no judgment. I'm allowed to bring my boundaries and they will be respected. I am allowing to say no and it will be fully welcome as a yes. I am not being rushed to anything that I'm not ready to. And I'm not being judged for who I am and how I go about things. And that creates the environment for the body. As we said, it's always start in the body and the body holds the. So these settings are allowing the body to feel safe, that then send the signal to all the system, I am safe. And what happened, it's the most beautiful thing. Not only that one feels so connected and so alive, desire wakes up naturally. And I can speak my desires. And then I can live my desires. And then I can recreate and co-create with life my desires. So it's a ripple effect of oneself with oneself and oneself with the one in front of him as a mirror of it.
Yeah.
And this is how two individuals can really evolve together and apart, separately.
I think you will love the next question here more. So when we talk about safety and passion, do you think safety and passion truly can coexist, or do they sometimes require different conditions?
I love the question, as you already suspected. And it's I love it because it's so important. Like it's such a deep topics, and I can share also a little bit from my own personal journey for anyone who's listening. I think it's the right moment to do so because it's so profound. Safety can coexist with passion 100%. However, safety must come first. And the reason that I'm going to explain it, and then I will give a little bit of my own personal life experience. When you are safe, your nerve system, as we already said it many times, regulate. And then passion and desire can be activated in a safe environment, which then is creating life itself and its aliveness. And it's not only passionate in sex and in sensuality. I'm talking about passion in life, to co-create anything in life. However, without safety, passion can look very similar to the passion with the safety, but on the long run, it will be drama and trauma bond. Because in one of the episodes that we were talking, we said that our nerve system will always prefer a known hell than an unknown heaven. And so when I'm drawn to something, sometimes I can drawn to something that is not good for me, but my nerve system is feeling very comfortable with it. And so if I've seen, and now I'm sharing my own story, my own personal story, if I've seen in my own home that love is drama, is fight, is scream, is big emotions, is disrespectful, but this is what I've seen as love. My nerve system may be drawn to someone that will reflect this kind of drama in my life, and I can be confused thinking that this is love and I am passionate about this person. But truly, it's just activating my nerve system in a dysregular way, and I'm feeling unsafe inside. And for the long run, it will break me. And so it's really important to understand that passion is I am alive, I am attracted, I want to conquer, I want to create. And in sensuality, of course, it looks like desire and sexual attraction. But if I don't feel safe with this person, and afterwards it leaves me feel empty and with a lot of effort and with inner pain, and the body always know. And if you are hearing my words now and you feel it, know that you're not alone. And the time to ask myself, is it truly love that is related with passion, or is it trauma bond passion?
I think it's so profound what you're saying more. And one reflection I have here is, first of all, thank you for sharing. And I think there's also, I see this with a lot of people today and in general, that they are seeking that dopamine rush, that you have that passion. And it's like they're repeating a behavior over and over again. And again, it goes back to potential trauma bond or drama bond that they might be having, right? So it's profound and a very healthy way of starting to look at your own behavior and maybe how you're connecting with people, and particularly when it comes to passion and desire, if you will, and that safety needs to come first.
Yeah, yeah. If you look at it, I always like, I like a lot of metaphors and analogy. I always look at safety as the soil and passion as the fire. So
It's beautiful.
for the long run, fire cannot hold itself without soil, but together they can create true of everything. You
True.
can think.
It's a beautiful way of visualizing it. But in the case of Maria, she describes her body waking up after years of silence. What do you think happens when women let their bodies lead instead of their minds?
I'll land in this question for a second, if it's okay with you. Wow, it's such a beautiful question and such a beautiful and profound journey as well, to land back in the body and to lead from the body. I feel that when a woman let her body to be her leader and her anchor and her guide and wisdom, then she transform her intelligence from performance or something she thinks she needs to be in order to be anything loved, accepted, wanted, desired, into a true truth and simple truth just by being. And when a woman is really able to land in her body, it really reflects back, and it will tell exactly what is nourishing and what is not, where it's aligned, where it's not aligned, and what is alive and what is not alive. So the body can really be the guide of it all, the wisdom of it all. I think when a woman really land in her body and allow this intelligence to lead her, she's unbreakable, unstoppable. She's no longer seeking for any validation from the outside. She doesn't look for answers outside. And she's also becoming more quiet in her power. And you can really feel a woman that is connected to her body when she enters a room. You can really feel it in the presence.
For me, femininity is a life force, right? When you
Mm.
really see it in action in the right way. And I think that's what you're describing here as well. You can see it on the person, and it is a life force.
I love it that you call it a life force. Yes, yes. Femininity is a life force. Yes.
And we've explored this in a few other episodes now when it comes to polarity around and also integrating the masculine and the feminine. If you think about Carl Jung and his learnings about that, we all have a masculine and a feminine. And I think it is about truly balancing those and having that dance of polarity, if you will, really working out for you.
Yes, absolutely. What a beautiful way of saying it, Henrik.
Thank you. And the last question for today, when it comes to Maria, do you believe pleasure can be a path to healing? And if so, how?
Yeah, I think I love this question, and also touching on my own personal story. And the answer is absolutely yes, in the right way and in a safe way. Absolutely yes, because what is absolutely yes can also be an absolutely no. We are within this polarity that we are just
Yeah.
now touched. So when we approach it as such, as a path of healing, I invite the women that are doing so to really be in awareness, first of all, with themselves. So, first of all, explore on their own self before they invite any other feature partner for this journey. Absolutely, it can be much more powerful with a partner as well.
Mm.
But many things needs to be already set in that journey for it to be really safe and not triggering even more a wound that is already existing. So in the way I see it is that pleasure softens the trauma that held in the body. Yeah. It rewires the entire nervous system and it takes it from survival to safety. And it teaches the subconscious that I am worthy of feeling good. I am worthy of feeling pleasure. And it's not it's for everyone. It's a birthright. It's a birthright for everyone to feel pleasure in their life. And
And it
it's
starts
really
with yourself, right?
Mhm.
And it
It's true.
starts with yourself. Like you said, you have to
Exactly. It
start with
really has
yourself.
to start with yourself and and what is even pleasure for me. And it of course, when we are talking in this context and with this podcast and the topic of today, it's related to sexuality and intimacy. But when we think of pleasure, it can be in so many other aspects of life itself. But going back to that specific sexual pleasure and a pathway to healing, what am I thinking about having pleasure with myself? What are the story around that? What have I been taught around that? Have I ever practiced it? And if I did so, were I fully present while doing so, or I was already activated from a survival place and doing it as an automatic release? And really practicing what comes up emotionally in the sense of feeling in the field,
Mhm.
and then mentally what I'm currently thinking about that, and energetically, and just without judgment and with so much compassion and love, start to slowly decode and de-armor all of the emotional pain that is stored around that area, especially for women.
Yeah, and I think shame is something that often comes up with that, right? That you feel shame likely.
Yes, there is so much shame and so much pain and so much sadness and so much disappointment and so much neglection and rejection and abandonment that can come to the surface when one is really landing in her body and exploring what is available for me as I practice self-pleasure.
It's such a beautiful way to finish up today, Moore. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me again, Henrik. I love our conversations. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you. To choose yourself is not to turn away from love. It's to remember what love really means. Maria found that through her body, through laughter, through surrender, but most of all, through truth. Because every time we say yes to what feels real, we say yes to life. And maybe that's what 34O is really about. Not chasing perfection, but returning to presence. This was Maria when she chose herself. And I'm Henrik, and you're listening to 34O. Thank you for listening, and remember to stay open, stay present, and stay human.